Hey, what's up, guys? Note Investor here. So we take the stairs up and the elevators down. It's like I always say, we're seeing a big sell-off here. I'm seeing articles, flash crash, big sellers in Ethereum. Most of the alts are getting smacked. And so we're seeing the pullback here. We're breaking below this trend line. So I want to bring an update, talk about some specific levels to be looking at here. Some trades that I was taking here near term, and we'll go over all of that. Let's take a quick look at the coin market cap here first. You can see we had this big sell-off after peaking around that $240 billion mark. Quick spike lower as BTC and the alts are really getting hit on this spike down to $218 billion now, and Bitcoin dominance spiking to 55%. So it continues to climb here as we are rotating out of the alts. The last couple of weeks have been nice in the sense that as Bitcoin climbed, the alts continued to move higher on a bigger percentage basis, which is the ideal scenario for me when I'm trading alts. You want to see them move in sympathy with Bitcoin. I use Bitcoin as a directional leader, but I'm trading the alts to kind of gain a little bit more momentum, get a little bit higher beta, if you will. But yesterday we started to see some stalling out. So let's go back to the charts here. Looking at BTC on the 4-hour chart, we are starting to see some stalling. It attempted to break above 7,400. This is the 4-hour chart. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts above, and it just could not. We had a little bit of a sell-off. I was in a couple of alt positions during this initial sell-off, took some profits on Neo, on VeChain, and as Bitcoin started to bounce again, I mean, keep in mind, this was still maintaining the 10 EMA. Everything was looking fine. But as it started to bounce, the alts were not confirming. Some of them are still rolling over. And so I got cautious, decided to just stay in cash going into my overnight. And I did post this chart on Twitter yesterday, highlighting a couple of key zones. And I want to just highlight that and recap. If you guys remember in my last video, I was talking about some levels I was watching, and we basically have hit all of those targets on the upside. Doesn't mean that it couldn't have gone higher, but I was much more cautious now just because we had already seen a pretty long run, and I had been tracking to some key Fibonacci levels throughout this entire rally. We saw the first touch to the 382 there, and here again we finally broke above it, paused right at the 50% retracement, paused, broke above it again, and then you can see here the last couple of days right to the 618, which was around 73, 75, and that was my target that I was looking for, was at mid to upper 7,300. Above that, I was saying we could have gone to 7,500 or so, but we have to keep in mind that in the big picture, we were still within this big triangle pattern that we've been watching, and we were very close to approaching that trend line again. And so those were the levels I was watching. That was kind of my key level to be watching. As this pattern developed, it was wedging up slightly. Volume on the weekly chart, remember, was declining over the last 3 weeks. And, we had seen 3 weeks of pretty decent action. So we were due for a pause, a pullback, and where I'm thinking we're going to see a red week finally here. And this was the zone I was watching. First this 618 level, and then ultimately this trend line. I was keeping an eye out for a potential bull trap. I thought maybe this could spike higher, fake a stage, a breakout here, and trap some bulls and then go lower. But we didn't quite get that high, couldn't really break above 7,400, and then overnight saw a very quick move to the downside. Ethereum got smacked. We'll take a look at that one here shortly, but you can see how fast this was. This is a 1-hour chart, very quickly dropped to that 7,100 level, a little bit of a bounce, and just still on its way down. A little bit oversold near term, and so we're definitely due for a bounce. You can see the 1-hour RSI is hitting these extreme levels to the downside, and so I am looking for a little bit of a bounce here. The 10 EMA on the 4-hour is back up here near 7163, and so a bounce between here to around maybe 7,000, 7,100 would not be surprising. But in the big picture, the momentum, sorry about that, let me fix that. The momentum has certainly shifted. Let me clear these for you guys. Now that we've broken this rising trend line, we've broken the 10 EMA, I'm going to be looking for a higher daily low. How low this goes ultimately is anyone's guess. I have some targets to the downside. First level I was watching is around that 6,800. I said that's most likely going to be hit. It looks like we're very close to that. Then below that, I'm looking at around a little bit wider of a window, but it's around this 65, or excuse me, 65.50 up to around 66.40, 66.30, in and around there. And that's kind of my next target to the downside. And so those are the two levels I'm going to be watching. I'm going to ultimately be looking for a daily reversal now. Now that we've put in an intermediate top, I'm going to be paying attention to see how this downside action plays out, how much further it goes, and then I'll be looking for that higher low. Now, could this fully retrace and test the lows? It absolutely could, but it's too early to say that at this point. For now, this is a pullback, a pause from this uptrend that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, and we were due, going back to that weekly chart, I had pointed this out last week, we were seeing 3 weeks, and this is a pretty big reversal, going to do a lot of last week's gains. If it breaks below 6,700, that will be a big bullish, or excuse me, a big bearish engulfing candle on the weekly. Would not look good, and in that scenario, then I'm looking for a retest of the lows. So for now, just going to take it to one day at a time, as I like to say, looking for a little bit of a bounce between 6,800 and where we're at now, up to around 7,100. But I think that's just going to be a bounce, and that's all we're going to see here in the near term. As this momentum has shifted, you can see the volume on this break was very high. It was a significant break to the downside. High volume reversals near the highs, got to pay attention to. Another thing that I did want to make note of is the BTC shorts. Now, over the weekend, we saw a significant rise in a matter of hours. This thing popped 51%. And so you saw a huge rise in short increase. Now, I normally don't trade off of this data. It's just an interesting data point to keep an eye on. But that was just such a significant rise in shorts to the upside. And I just made note of that. I was telling the group and saying, hey, this is interesting, something to be aware of. Somebody probably knows something, or there's a big, a large player that is betting on a pullback here in the near term, and certainly we're starting to see that now. But that was just something of note, and now we're starting to see that that's being profitable here for those shorts in the near term. So speaking of shorts, the other one, I did take a short here, entry overnight. It was looking at Ethereum here. I was bearish on Ethereum yesterday, and I posted this in the group as the day was wrapping up. I was in cash, but I said, hey, this big daily bear flag on Ethereum looks like it's about to break. 272 was kind of my watch number, and so I had my order set in place and didn't expect that dramatic of a fall, but I was filled on that short, and my first target was 250. Looks like we bounced a little bit off of that, but we're breaking lower now. So next target on the downside is going to be around that low 200 range. And, you know, just taking a macro view of Ethereum, if it breaks below 200, then the next major support is way down at around 150. Now, I'm not going to look for that on this specific trade here, but just something to keep an eye on in the big picture. Those will also be key points of potential reversals to the upside. But for now, Ethereum continues to be the weak one, continues to be the laggard. And so from a short side perspective, I'm not necessarily shorting BTC, but I was shorting Ethereum on this pullback as this move lower is playing out here near term. Looking at a few more here, I was watching Litecoin over the weekend as it was looking strong. I mentioned this one in my last video. It did lead to the upside and then had this pullback. Another rally attempt yesterday, and you can see now that this is rolling over, has put in a big double top on this 4-hour chart versus BTC here. Looking at it from the USD side, you can see here, this was the break I was watching. I was looking for a Litecoin to hit $72. Couldn't make it, especially with BTC failing to break above that $74 mark. And had that rally, but just really gave up those gains very quickly here on this pullback. And so for now, this one is done, especially on the BTC side, just looking like it's rolling over. And if Bitcoin continues to pull back, I expect the alts to continue to underperform and see larger pullbacks from a percentage basis on the downside. Another one was NEO. I was looking at this one over the weekend again, moving higher. My target on NEO was around that $25.80 or so. Above $25 though, I said, hey, this is time to start looking at potentially locking in some gains. And sure enough, it started to roll over yesterday. I got stopped out here, locked in some small gains. Not a huge trade per se, but Was keeping an eye on it because it still looked pretty good, was holding above the 10 EMA, but just with BTC rolling over and everything breaking down, see how high that volume is on this break lower. So not a positive sign. This is the highest volume that we've seen here in most of this move back. So just a big break from the top, and so I expect some more downside on a lot of these names. This chart looks very similar to so many names right now. We had this little stalling action yesterday. Couldn't recover from that, and as Bitcoin rolled over, a lot of these names are giving up a lot of those gains made over the last couple of days. Looking at a few quick news items, there's a lot of explanations out there, potential reasons for why BTC is dropping, and you guys know me, generally I really don't care much about the news. I tend to follow the charts. I look at the price action to make any of my trading decisions, but it's always interesting to see some of the news items that are being talked about the most. One of the big ones today is Goldman Sachs is abandoning plans for Bitcoin trading desk. Now, it's not really that they're abandoning it per se, but they are clarifying that this is not a priority for the foreseeable future, and they're going to be focusing on servicing large institutional clients. So not really a big surprise there, but there was some rumors earlier, a few months back, saying that they were going to start a trading desk. And so got a lot of excitement around the crypto community, but now they look like they are clarifying that's not really going to be a priority in the near term. Is that the reason for the drop? I doubt it, but just something to be aware of here. Another one here is Bitcoin drops after mysterious whale moves over 100 million of crypto exchanges. Now this one makes a little bit more sense because of the big drop, the magnitude. This is an interesting article. I'll post a link to this here in the video notes, but you can see here that there was a whale that had been moving a pretty big amount of BTC and former Silk Road vendor, etc. But some of this went to Binance and Bitfinex, and that was about 14% of this total BTC that this address or hold. But you can see here it corresponded pretty closely with some of this as some of that selling began. So maybe this is one of the reasons that triggered the plunge. And I always say it's always interesting because after a big drop, we're always looking for the whys. But at the end of the day, I mean, the charts were vulnerable. There was a lower trend line that was to be watched. We were right at resistance. And so whether or not this just happened to coincide with that event still doesn't discount the fact that there were other signs, other cautionary flags to be making note of during this. But this is another interesting article to check out. So I'll definitely put a link to this one here for you guys. Another big one is Shapeshift is becoming a membership-based website. This is a big negative in my opinion. I really liked Shapeshift when it first came out because of that anonymity, because of the ease of use. You could just go to their website and it was a wonderful service. Of course they charged for it, but they provided that. Now with membership and mandatory accounts, it just really takes a lot of the value away from Shapeshift, and I'm not so sure that it's going to be a popular move within the crypto community. They're talking about how this is due to customer demands and relationships, etc. But the reality is, let's be honest, this is due to pressures from regulations, from governments, anti-money laundering, those type of things. We know that governments want accounts to be identified, and so it was kind of surprising that Shapeshift was able to go this long without maintaining or requiring that. And so we're starting to see that move in the opposite direction. So it's quite unfortunate to see them going this route. I believe it's going to get tougher and tougher for the crypto community to maintain that sense of anonymity. You're seeing a lot of exchanges require verification to be able to deposit or withdraw funds, and so it's not surprising though, unfortunately, because we understand that blockchain and crypto are certainly a threat to some of the status quo, some of the control that a lot of institutions have. And so we're going to see pushback, and we will continue to see pushback in terms of any type of privacy or any type of system that gives you that ability. You're seeing other exchanges delist privacy coins. You're seeing Changelly saying that they may not give their users Monero, which, I mean, that's just crazy. At that point, why use those type of services? So this is big news. I think we'll continue to hear more about it. Let me know what you guys think. I'm curious to know. I'm sure a lot of you guys don't even use Shapeshift, but I know I have in the past. I think it's a great service for what they provide, and I'm not so excited about this membership switch over. So appreciate you guys watching. Wanted to bring that quick update. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow, so look out for that, and we'll see where these markets go today. Till next time, take care, everyone.